Roll it.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to the Firehouse podcast, episode
63.
63. We are here at Colca Studios. If you need a firehouse built, give them a call. Ryan Mackey's on the sticks. Be sure to give him a follow at Max_visuals, MACKS. And go to volleyhousepodcast.com or DM us to ask us questions and send in stories or videos you'd like us to review. And make sure you give us a follow on all social media platforms at Volleyhouse Podcast and subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify. And today's episode, special guest, Mr. Paul Hashagen.
Oh, thank you. That guy, he's right there.
Thank you so much for coming out. Very excited to hear all about what you got going on and some of the history of your career and whatnot. So,
And Freeport.
yeah, that's part of it.
And Freeport.
If you want to just give a quick background, I'm sure everyone probably knows it, but just in case,
Sure. I joined the Freeport Fire Department in 1976, quite by accident. And I had always thought about the fire department. My grandfather was a New York City fireman, so I kind of knew when I was a little kid that's what I wanted to do.
Right.
And then when you grow up a little bit, real life comes along. And I wasn't in a situation where I had anybody in the fire department anymore. So I had to get a real job and do those other things. And then when my second daughter was born, we moved back to Freeport. And by circumstance, I was fixing a man's telephone. And next thing I knew, I'm at a firehouse on a Sunday morning. And I'm telling my wife I'm joining the fire department while she's holding a baby with a toddler standing next to her.
Oh, boy.
She was very happy.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, again, thanks for being here. And we'll get into our usual shenanigans here. And then we'll get into all the questions, all the stuff that you got to talk about. So I'm excited for all this.
Sounds good.
We will start with our friends over at Ultra Bright Lights. Ultra Bright Lights. So this April, the Volley House podcast is sponsored by Ultra Bright Lights, the go-to source for volunteer firefighter emergency lighting. Spring brings unpredictable weather, longer days, and more calls. And when you're responding, visibility is everything. Whether it's your personal vehicle or your department rig, Ultra Bright Lights has the lights, sirens, and flashers you need to stay safe and stand out on the road. Built for volunteers, trusted in the field, and ready when you are. Head over to ultrabrightlights.com and use promo code VOLLYPOD, it's VOLLYPOD, at checkout to get 10% off your order. That's VOLLYPOD for 10% off. Subject to terms and conditions at ultrabrightlights.com and link to their website in the video description below.
And we've had a lot of people using that code.
Yep.
Which is awesome.
And also, All Hands Fires. By now, you're likely familiar with All Hands Fire Equipment and Training. They've solidified their place as the industry leader, providing the elite tools, gear, and training that public safety professionals rely on every single day, while also holding 5 Sourcewell contracts for easy procurement. And they want to reward you guys for being loyal viewers and supporters of public safety with 10% off your next order. Just head over to allhandsfire.com and use code VOLLY10 at checkout to save. As always, get the best tools for the toughest job. Same deal, link to their website in the video description below. And get into job of the week here.
Well, first, I should apologize because I made a mistake in the last podcast.
You make a mistake every podcast.
I know I do. But that's why I listened back to make sure. But I got to apologize to Ron Concomah. I apologized to one of the chiefs the other day. But my brain was telling me Lake Ronkonkoma, and I was saying Lake Grove. So it's Ronkonkoma Fire Department in the Lake Ronkonkoma Fire District.
Okay.
So just want to get that right.
All right.
My screw up.
Thank God we got that cleared up.
I know. It's crazy. But
Speaking of which,
job of the week.
job of the week.
It was Jericho just had a
Three
ripping
alarm.
job.
Yeah, they had a
Ripping
third
job.
alarm fire.
Garage into the house, split level.
Yeah.
So they
And,
called a bunch of departments, Syosset and
Did Freeport have one this week?
Yeah.
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 I think been fairly busy for them,
Yeah.
right? For you guys?
They've been getting some good jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, and as always, send us, if you want a shout out for Job of the Week, send us some information and we'll shout it out on the show.
I went to Centery Saturday. Small job.
Oh, yeah, and St. James had one
St. James had a job. Yep,
last night, too.
that's right.
So, suspended or not,
No, we got one this week, huh?
got one this week.
All right, what do we got? This is the fun part, Paul.
Yeah. So,
Decide whether we're going to suspend somebody or not.
yeah, we usually get in stories. People tell us something crazy that happened, and
Maybe Paul's got a good one for us, too.
well, that's the other part of it. So, this one is firefighters pulling people over using either their blue lights in their car or using a department vehicle to pull over an erratic driver.
Somebody did that?
Yeah, I think there's been multiple instances of this.
Why?
What do you think?
Are you stupid?
What do you think, Paul?
I think you got better things to do with your time than
Oh, my God.
make them believe you're the police department.
Yeah, it's true.
It could be, I mean,
If it's
in person.
dangerous, you have a radio, call the cops.
Yeah, right?
You don't know. See, that's the problem with people. You don't know what's going on in that car.
Right.
Yeah, what if they have a gun?
And if they were cleaning their gun out when you walked up, oops, sorry.
Yeah. No, I
Impersonating
agree.
a police officer, too.
Well, besides
Yeah.
being against
Right.
the law, it
It's against
doesn't
the
make
law.
sense.
Suspended or terminated?
Yeah, what if that was brought to you as a chief? What are you going with that? Are you going to give them a suspension
Well,
or?
you really have to dig into it. I mean,
gotta
exactly
see what's
what were
going
they doing? Are they trying to keep the person from getting hurt and hurting themselves, or are they playing police officer? There's two different things there.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
But knowing some guys, they're playing police officer, and you can't really abide that. Like I saw the episode with Bobby last week, or a couple, Bobby Burke,
Oh, Bobby.
Oh,
Burke.
yeah, yeah.
That was few. Yeah.
and you had an instant there, and everybody decided, well, you got to talk to him. But you do have to talk to him.
gotta
People
talk to
have
him.
to
Yeah.
understand
You
that
have to.
there's things that you can let go. But this is a different world than it was when I came here.
Yep.
And there's cameras everywhere. I mean, I was a kid of the 60s and 70s, Woodstock, the whole thing. Thank God there was no cameras around.
Yeah, right.
Everybody be in jail.
Yep.
Yeah, no, 100%. When you were going through the ranks over in Freeport, did you get brought any situation to your attention where you had to make a decision on a suspension? If it was something crazy, like, are you kidding me? You really did that? Or
Yeah, I had a good mentor. Bruce Newberry was a contemporary of mine, but he was one of the guys blew out his birthday candles when he was 18, put his hand up. As I was explaining earlier, I got into the fire service. I had a slow start to get in. I was 25 when I got in. So being a little more mature, and only a little more mature than the 18-year-olds, it does give you a perspective. I got two kids at home. You're looking at it slightly differently. And Bruce would give me tips on how to handle people because he had been in an office, he had been a captain twice or three times, so he'd been through it. And one of the things that I used to do, and not often, but I would give people secret suspensions. I would just tell them, I don't want to see you for a month. And if I do, then it's going to be legit and we're going all the way. But just go home and think about it.
interesting.
Something like that, because some of the things are just dumb. Like, I told you everybody's out of the building. What are you doing? I was getting a Halligan. There's no excuse for that. You're going in there because you think you can, and no, go home for a month. We'll talk about it later.
That's interesting.
That isn't a shit. That's
The first time I've ever heard that. That's a good one, though.
You can use it if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. No, because sometimes, like if a person disappears for a while, you don't think much of it. You just say, oh, they're busy. Meanwhile, they really got themselves in trouble, but nobody knows they got in trouble, right?
Well, and then the word kind of gets out eventually.
They'll find
and
out.
that's a decent thing to do. I don't want to jam a guy's career up or or whatever else, but I certainly don't want you doing that behavior.
Yeah.
Because that's childish behavior. It's not your tool. It's not your house. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Huh. Yeah, so for people listening out there, there's another option for you.
No other option.
Let's get into 1-800-BOARD-UP. 1-800-BOARD-UP is the nationwide leader in securing structures and providing victim assistance backed by Belfor, the largest disaster restoration company in the world. When the tones drop and you roll out the door, you're there for your community. But when the fire's out and the rigs are back in quarters, families are still standing in the street trying to figure out what comes next. That's where 1-800-BOARD-UP, a Belfor company, comes in. Staffed by retired first responders, our teams understand the fire service and respond when requested to secure properties, prevent further damage, and help protect residents during those first critical hours. It's about doing things the right way and supporting the communities you serve. Check out their website in the video description below. 1-800-BOARD-UP and Belfor, backing the fire service beyond the fire ground. And also Boots and Brisket Soap Company. So this episode is proudly sponsored by Boots and Brisket Soap Company, a veteran-owned American small business that understands the importance of starting with the basics to keep your family healthy. Their tallow soaps are crafted with a short, honest ingredient list, no lengthy chemical names, no dyes, no nonsense, just traditional soap that respects your skin and your values. Stack up for your home at bnbsoapco.com and use code VOLLEY10 for 10% off. Active duty, veterans, and first responders can also verify through Verify Pass to receive 15% off once verified. And visit their website in the description below.
And double it up.
Yeah, you're
lucky
allowed to
discounts.
combine those two. They're doing a good thing.
I smell good.
Yeah.
Beef tallow.
So, Paul, you mentioned you joined kind of late. You went through the story of how you were working on some guy's telephone and you wind up on a Sunday. How did that whole thing transpire that you wound up joining?
Well, I got his telephone in pieces as I'm fixing it. And I see on the wall, it's a Maltese cross. He's an ex-captain, so they plaqued him on his way out, as they do to most every captain.
Right.
And I saw it and just struck up a conversation. And he was telling me where his firehouse was, and having climbed poles all over the area, I knew that's where the fires were. So I decided, let's go. They're asking, he says, we're looking for guys. I said, all right, good. So I went there, and I had a good year and a half there, and before I decided I wanted to go down to a truck company. So I was in hose 5, and my first fires I ever went to, I was either backing up somebody or stretching hose or on the nozzle or learning how to pump and doing all that kind of stuff. And it just felt natural to me.
Felt right.
Right.
I knew I was in the right job.
That's awesome.
Now Freeport's got quite a few stations, right?
Yeah. There's 6 pumpers, 3-piece hook and ladder company, 2-piece emergency company. And there's firehouses all over the place.
Now that's-
Headquarters has a bunch of them, but they're north and south and east of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 firehouses.
So now that the truck's a tiller, right?
Yeah, when I got there, it was a snorkel and a tiller rig. They had a Hahn pumper up in hose 5. Like I said, I did a little over a year there, and then I came down to truck company, and I've been in truck company ever since. So
Is that the only tiller on the island? Is that the only one?
I think
No, I
Levittown's
think-
got one.
Levittown's got one?
there's another one in by Valley Stream or something like that.
Yeah, I
I think
think
I've seen it up.
Okay.
Big one. I think there's a series of mirrors or something to look down. So I
Doesn't
don't know
Really?
if they
Glen
still
Cove
have.
have one?
Yeah, I'm not sure who has what, but
I thought they had a tiller.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't think
definitely
there's any in Suffolk.
no.
Just all Nassau.
There's not many left in New York City.
How many
I
are?
only
keep
a
hearing
few.
they want to add tillers to the city. I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, there are some really tight blocks. I mean, over where I worked, up by 143 with that tiller, those streets are tight up
Yeah,
there.
the neighborhoods that they still have them, you really need them.
Oh, you need it.
There's nothing like it.
Right. Yeah. So your first job was with the volleys in Freeport.
Yeah.
In the engine.
Yeah, in the engine. Do you remember the first fire? What that was about? Was
Yeah,
it
I
anything
got
crazy?
yelled at by somebody because we were like fourth or fifth, and they said, "New guy, just go up and watch." So I went up and yeah, go in. So I walked in. I'm just looking around, and then somebody yelled at me, "What are you doing?" All right,
He
sorry.
told me to.
But
Yeah.
I was just trying to get a look at it and see what was going on. This was all before school and everything else. But my first real job, I don't have a strong memory of that. Just going back with my tail between my legs on the first time I went in the door. Then after that, I really started paying attention as to the pecking order and where I'm supposed to be, and
Right.
it all kind of blended in. But like I said, it just felt natural. Packing the hose, everything. It made sense to me. Like some people are just looking at all the equipment and have no idea of what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to work, and it kind of just clicked for me.
And then what made you go over to the truck?
Well, I was involved in a rescue, just by dumb luck. It wasn't me. It was meeting night, and I realized very early on that the fire crew gets to leave the meeting, and if there's a fire, they get to go to work while everybody's still back there talking about buying couches or whatever the hell they're doing with the company money.
Nonsense.
It's all important, but
Yep.
not like somebody's house is on fire. So
Right.
I always wanted to be on the fire crew. And we pull up, and we're third or fourth due, and we report into the command post. It's an apartment house. And we were the first two guys to get there. This fella, Ike and myself, and looked at the chief and said, "What do you need, chief?" And he just goes, "Oh, good, you guys. There's a kid missing on the first floor right in there. Go find him." Okay. So when we go, I got an old Scott on, a Scott 2 with the steel bottle and the bug eyes and everything. And we get there, and there's two apartments when we go in. So there's two of us. So I said, I'll go in this one. So Ike went straight, and I went to the right. And I go in, and I'm doing a search, and I come across a kid laying on the floor. After a while, I did the second swing up through the room, going, if they said there's a kid in here, and now I'm trying to get acclimated. I had been trained in searching and everything, but actually doing it is a different thing.
Yeah.
This might have been my first true search operation, not off a line, just doing it. And that kid was nice enough to be laying in my path, and I picked him up. So he was in danger. I was in no danger.
Right.
But all of a sudden, you get the accolades when you walk out. And as my career would go, I walked out the door, and a guy took my picture.
Right
And
away.
it's been happening ever since, So, but I got the idea that, like, wow, you can make that kind of a difference. Besides saving the man's house, you can save the guy's kid, too,
Right. Yeah.
And the kid lived?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was conscious, and it was good,
Wow.
And I had been looking that way. There was a little political skullduggery going on with the captain at the time, but it really, I'm looking down at the truck company because there was just so much more to do. I think I felt like I figured out most everything that I had to do there, and then I'm looking at the work that the truck's doing, and now I get a little taste of doing a rescue, and it kind of just felt, I should be going down there. In the interim, I had taken the New York City test because there was a bunch of guys there that were buffs, as there were in other companies, and then you start hanging around with the like-minded guys from the different companies. And there was two guys from engine company I went in with and took the test to get on the city job with. And so the next thing, I'm on the list and I'm ready to go. And then all of a sudden, I'm a volunteer fireman that turns into a paid fireman.
Right.
And I'm not about to stop volunteering, so I'm a 24-hour-a-day, 365-day-a-year fireman.
Gotta love it.
And that's just how it turned out for quite a long time.
Now, you said the truck was also closer to your house, right?
Well, that was one of the things they used to roll their eyes because I would go driving by with the little blue light on going, going up north, and that's where most of the fires were. But they'd give me the look, But I was friends with a lot of them, Bruce, who I mentioned, and
Bruce,
who I worked my whole career with. They eventually got me in there. And then I think for the next 20 years, I didn't use a blue light because I never took a car. If I was home, I jumped the fence and ran up the block because I was a
Close
block
enough.
away from the firehouse.
Yeah,
and
it
even
makes
with guys
sense.
sleeping in, I could usually beat them to the truck. 'Cause
Really?
I
that's
could get out
funny.
fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
You had quite a few city guys in that company,
An
right?
amazing,
Yeah, you would have-
amazing amount of guys. One of the senior guys when I got there was a guy, Bob. I'll think of his last name in a minute, but he had been an officer in the city, and he had just this calm demeanor about him, and he was the chief instructor. And I just watched him do things, and I remember he was showing me something about. And I knew him earlier when I was still in Hose 5 and taking the fire school and everything. And I thought I was going to show them how the phone company carries a ladder, having done that for 8 years. And he immediately is letting me know, this ain't the phone company, pal. Bob Courtney, that was his name. And then I realized right then that nothing translates, that this is a completely different thing all by itself, like carrying a ladder. And at first it didn't make sense, but it's 100% true because I was never in a phone company operation where 2 people carried a ladder.
Right.
So I was out of my depth. So shut up and listen. And then,
yeah.
right off the bat, I learned that. Keep your mouth shut. Let the man tell you what to do.
Right.
And then I quickly learned, let everybody tell you what to do because he's going to tell you how to put the ladder up, and so is he, and so is he. But there might be a different story with each one. So if you don't tell anybody, I know that, just don't say anything. Just let them tell you. And if they go over the same stuff and you already know it, well, it's just a reinforcement. But when they come up with that little extra nugget, that little thing that, well, this worked for us or that didn't work for us, that's the good thing about getting the input from everybody.
That's great advice.
Now, was Bruce on the job before you or after it?
Bruce was in Freeport way before me. He got in when he was 18. But
about on the
I
city?
beat him in the city by about a year.
Oh,
He was a little bit further back on the list. But Hank Mollet was in the company.
Yep.
Frankie Fee later
senior
on.
man.
John Fee, Tommy Fee, Tom Spagnola,
Yeah, you had a big
Bobby. There was a lot of guys, really good guys too. You could count on, like, not just your average bear. Like, these guys were good.
Right. So I recently the Leary Foundation had posted something about you, and one of the comments which actually interested me, and I'm like, I'm gonna ask him this. You get into FDNY, and you're in Rescue 1 in 5 years. Is that accurate?
Little less.
A little less.
Yeah.
How does one go from getting on the job in FDNY to less than 5 years later being in the rescue company?
Well, a lot of it is, well, it's a little bit of luck too. There has to be an opening. You have to have somebody that understands where you're coming from or thinks that you're as talented as you think you are.
Yeah.
But realistically, and again, it's that volunteer connection. Chris Gliana was a former chief in Baldwin, and Freeport and Baldwin mutual aid each other all the time. We're the first one to help them. They're the first one to help us. And we got to be fast friends, Chris and I. And then going to Long Beach to help or wherever else we went, we were seeking each other out. And he was in Rescue 1. And when I got on the job, he's, I'll get you in, I'll get you in. It's, wait, I'm not going anywhere till I'm first grade. I'm not talking to anybody till I'm first grade. And then he was on the list to get to be a lieutenant, so he keeps, no, come down there. I talked to the captain. So I said, I'll be first grade soon. Just, relax, chill out. And then he gets promoted and he goes off to Brooklyn. I think he was a lieutenant 111, and so dynamic fireman. And he had put in a good word with the boss. And finally, when I was first grade, I figured I'll go down there, hat in hand, and go for the interview. And I went there, and as it turns out, he puts me on the list, tells me all this stuff, and he mentions Freeport. And it was Brian O'Flaherty, and he was not a volunteer fireman. He was a Brooklyn fireman that ended up being a captain of Rescue 1, but he was noted for all his time in Brooklyn. And but Chris had explained to him, and I guess he had heard, Freeport Truck had some kind of reputation even then, and people had heard of it. Like, okay, so that wasn't something a lot of times there was that old thing, especially when I first got in, people didn't talk about the volunteers. very
Right.
much.
Yeah.
Hush, hush.
Yeah, and there was a lot of guys from upstate and stuff, so like Long Island was kind of unique. But anyway, I went there and the captain said, all right, I got you on the list, I'll give you a call. And one of the guys was going to take a year's leave of absence from Rescue 1 and to go into the Ironman triathlete in Hawaii and to go train for it.
Really? Holy cow.
So,
Jeez.
okay, wow. And captain says, you want to come over? I said, sure, let's go. So February of 1983, I went there.
Wow.
Wow.
And then where were you when you started with FDNY?
I did a little over a year in 74 engine on West 83rd Street.
Upper West Side, right?
Upper
My
West
brother
Side.
lived over there. Yeah.
Great firehouse, great
Lost
neighborhood,
World.
good place to learn. It was occupied Manhattan. We weren't running our tail off, but you were going to occupied buildings. We were talking about the training that comes with a vacant, but all the nonsense, the grind that comes with vacants. We could go find a vacant to go play in, but you didn't have to deal with them that much. I went to them, but not like some people. That's all they were doing.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of good old timers there that still remembered before Lincoln Center got built. That was all tenements. And that whole west side, there was a lot of work there from 21 truck up. There was all good work. And then everything changed. And, once you clean up the neighborhood, the fires go down as they're supposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know over there because my brother lived up there for a bit, and when I would go to visit him, I would always just park right over there because I had the sticker. Any cop would just assume I'm one of the firemen there. But they were called the Lost World with the Jurassic Park logo.
Well, that was later. Yeah.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah,
what was it when you got there? Did they have a name or a logo?
They didn't really have. Well, no, they kind of did, but I don't want to talk about it. No, they had some kind of crazy transvestite.
Really?
Fight.
That's an
Well,
interesting one.
the city was really changing. The
Yeah.
Upper West Side, for a while, there was one little park. When it got really, really bad, there was one little neighborhood. There was heroin addicts around. It was all crazy. This ugly George guy was going around with a camera, getting women to take their shirts off. All this crazy stuff going. It was bizarre. Manhattan in the Upper West Side was very bizarre in those years, but I don't know. These guys knew what they were doing at a fire, so I'm paying attention to that. I'm trying not to watch the world go by outside.
Right.
We had I forget who the governor was, but to save money, they decided that the people that are in insane asylums, for a lack of a better word, we're going to let them go live in the neighborhood. It'll be good for everybody.
Oh boy.
Except for the people in that neighborhood.
right.
And the whole building next door to us was filled with people that really should have been supervised. And then just walking the streets.
Oh my God.
I remember one man used to go talk to trees, and most of them were harmless, but it was screwy. And you had to lock the doors in the firehouse. And it's against the regulations. I remember one time the chief coming, and I had this great captain. He was so good. They'd give the call, the chief's coming. So the captain would go over and take an ashtray, take a cigarette butt out, throw it on the floor, throw another one on the floor. What the hell's this guy doing? The chief comes, and the first time this guy comes in, and dress, we do the roll call, the whole thing. He's taking his mark in the book, and he goes, "Oh, Cap, do me a favor. Have somebody police the area over here." "Oh, yeah, sorry, Chief, sorry." So the chief leaves, and I said, "Why'd you do that? You got in trouble." He goes, "No, he's always going to find something, this guy. I want him to find it right here where I want it. I don't want him looking around here trying to find something."
They all want to find something, right?
So I thought, wow, this guy's a genius, So now it's a different time coming, and the door's locked, and the chief's visibly upset. Like he's going to write the captain charges and all this, and the captain is trying to explain to him the reason the door's locked is because all these people come from next door. And as he's explaining it, boom, the door flies open, and in comes this midget guy about this big with a top hat, smoking a cigar, going, "Hey, Chief." And he goes, "You can lock the door whenever you like."
So
He was one of the neighbors. He saw the chief there, and he wanted to come in. He was one of the people that should have been in the hospital.
Oh my God.
so the firehouses were unlocked back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
When
that.
you were in quarters, they were unlocked.
Oh, when you were in quarters?
Yeah.
So even overnight?
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to be on watch.
Right, the watch is supposed to be up all
Yeah.
night, right?
And it was legit. There was still I was still wearing a dress shirt and a tie. And you either had to have your cap with a badge or your nameplate with your number on it.
Right.
Wow.
And that goes back to the old days,
Yep.
so you could get in trouble. We know who you are.
Huh.
I didn't know the doors were unlocked. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, the doors. Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't think of that in the South Bronx. Don't leave
probably
the doors
well,
open.
no, but even in the Bronx,
Jesus.
probably until the 50s,
Well, it was nice then, yeah.
you know, the doors would go up. You got an alarm. You went out and you left everything wide open.
Yeah.
People wouldn't think of going into a firehouse and stealing things.
And a lot of the guys lived in the neighborhood and
Right.
went to work right there.
And then I think it really was heroin and stuff like that, where people were so desperate for money,
Yeah.
they would go into the firehouse and steal stuff, and the world changed. All right, the doors came down, like the turnouts were faster. Everybody get on the truck, go right out the
just
door.
leave.
You didn't slow down for traffic. You just went. And if you weren't there fast enough, you're running down the block hoping they catch some traffic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
They leave it behind.
So I know I mentioned this when you came in, but this book, The Rescue Squad Origins of Rescue Company 1, 1915 to 1922.
25.
What?
25.
What did I say?
22.
Oh, I don't know why I said that. You were nice enough to give me this book. I think it was 2 years ago, actually.
When
And
it first came out, yep.
yeah, and I'm not a huge buff with the FDNY and the history, but I'm like I'm gonna read this book, and it is wild. The stuff that these guys went through, and just like I mentioned to you before, how you had all the dates in there, the locations of these incidents, and the way you wrote it is almost like the visual part of it. Like you're immersed in whatever that scenario was. How long did it take you to write this book?
Well, that's a hard thing to say because there's stuff in that book that is from my first day of research, which was back in the 80s. So
Wow.
I've been writing that book since I started writing.
Wow.
It's like I wrote this. This was the second book that I wrote about Rescue One, and this was for the 100th anniversary. So it's a different kind of book, coffee table book, pictures, color pictures, a grand observation of the whole thing for the first 100 years. So maybe you get a paragraph, somebody's name mentioned, and a picture, and that's it. But you couldn't go that deep into it. But it always intrigued me what they must have done. And then after that came out, and I was working on other things, but I decided I want to go in there, and I just kept a little book of my own, and I started dropping stories into it when I started doing the research. And I combed newspapers throughout that 10-year period, all the New York City newspapers, the Brooklyn newspapers, books, whatever I could find. I wanted to know what they did and what it must have been like, because you have to realize we are so used to breathing apparatus and everything
Yeah.
else now that it's second nature. They were the first guys. Imagine this, there's 8 guys, so 8 firemen and 2 officers that have this special training and equipment, and that's it. Nobody else. And they're going where if something goes wrong with that helmet, you're dead.
Right.
So
insane.
they had nobody to call.
Wow.
But they would do what you probably got trained going through the SOC training with a tender for a diver. They were doing that in 1915, that guys were standing on the outside on the other end of the rope. There was no radios.
Yeah.
You're going into a chemical fire, a chemical leak, an ammonia spill, some kind of explosion, methyl ethyl bad shit's in there doing horrible things to people. And you put your Draeger smoke helmet on, which had a little tank on the back and a mixing bag in the front, and you looked out this little glass porthole, looked like a sponge diver's helmet, and in you went. And the first guy would tie the rope around his waist, or if it was an officer, you'd hold it in his hands. And in they'd go, and everybody would cling onto the rope, and they had to shut off ammonia plants and all these other
Yeah.
things virtually by feel, because it was a mica little glass thing in there, but it's not like the equipment we have now is so good, and
so
you still
different.
can't see what you're doing.
Right.
It's just that what's interesting in here, like you say, like the ammonia leaks, I guess back during that time, that was a very important chemical they used.
It was
in
the primary refrigerant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
refrigeration.
Primary refrigerant.
And
for
there's still some
commercial.
around in
yeah.
the city.
Yeah, but what the thing that's so interesting about this book is, you know, like you said, the original guys that were going into these fires, they didn't have masks or anything. They're going in there just eating this hot smoke, and then it's just like, yeah, you know, company goes in there, all these guys pass out, and then they send the rescue guys in with the smoke helmet. They pull them out and just resuscitate them outside, and they go back in
That's a
and do what they have to
la-di-da
do.
thing. My grandfather used to tell me stories. He didn't tell me that many. Usually there were good stories. My favorite stories, they had a fire in a candy store and they got to eat ice cream at the end. So, you know, they had big tubs of ice cream and they sat there. It was a hot summer day and they were eating it out of those big jugs they have. So that was my favorite story. But I do clearly remember him saying you could tell how bad a fire was by how many unconscious firemen were on the sidewalks.
So crazy.
And he would explain, and I think he was explaining that it happened to him without saying it, that if they had a bad cellar fire, they would rig up a bosun's chair and put you down on the bosun's chair, which is like a swing. For somebody who doesn't know what a bosun's chair is, it's like a little kid's swing at the park. And you would just go down, and they would have the hose like strapped, and you would sit there operating the hose until you passed out. And then they'd pull you up, and the next guy would go down until he passed out.
Wow.
So that was how they did business.
Right.
And what got them usually was the illuminating gas, the gas for lighting, and the gas for your stove. Because in those days, it did not have an odorant in it. Now you have mercaptan.
Right, yeah, yeah.
They didn't put mercaptan in there until, I don't know, a couple hundred kids got killed in Texas or something at a big gas leak and explosion. I think it was in the 30s. So all that time before that, they didn't want to put anything in it because it would have cost somebody some money.
Yeah.
So they went in, and if any part of the gas system started to leak, whether it's the meter or a joint or a pipe, all of a sudden, it was odorless and tasteless. It would just get into the smoke, and now you were breathing that in, and it was keeping the oxygen out. So that's what was knocking you out,
Right.
and all the time.
Jeez.
It's one of the craziest stories in this book. It was, I want to say it was one of the 4-alarm fires they had, but they were making rescues from a couple of stories up, and there was one guy who actually climbed up a ladder to the top, couldn't make it. There was a few stories up, and he put another ladder on his thighs,
Yeah, Tom Kilbride, yeah.
which is
Well,
so
while
another
he was standing on a parapet.
which is insane.
There's a 6-story drop in front of him. He's standing on a parapet, and there's a man. The building's L-shaped. So there's a big 6-story drop in front of you, 15 or 20 feet across. There's fire coming out like 50 windows, and these guys are stuck in the L. And a guy's up on top of one of those big iron shutters, and they can't figure out how to get there. They just got there. They're on the roof of the exposure, and he sees a paint ladder. So he runs over, and he stands on there and he puts the paint ladder on his knees
Jesus.
and leans it out there for the guy to climb down on.
Wow.
I mean, just
Another
it's-
day at work.
It's just yeah. That's how the book is. It's just like that was it. They packed up, went back, and next day
Before
they're all-
safety chiefs.
yeah,
All the safety chiefs died from heart attacks in those days.
yeah, I bet. But then they also had that tool. The was the pull monitor. Is that how you
Pull motor.
pull motor to resuscitate
It's a
people?
resuscitator. The same German company, Draeger, they made the smoke helmet and the pull motor. And that was really the first resuscitator, a manual resuscitator using oxygen that was accepted by hospitals and places like that. And right when Rescue 1 came in, all that stuff was brand new. It all was really starting. Europe had a little head start, maybe 5 years or so, but it wasn't that long that Draeger had been making these things. But they had a couple of really bad fires, subway fires and fires in places like that where a lot of people were getting knocked out by the smoke. And Scientific American and different newspapers in the city were calling on the fire department to get more modern, get better equipment, You know, you're supposedly the best fire department in the world, and how come you don't have this equipment?
Right.
They kind of shamed them into it. But the problem was, it's like anything else. There was nothing in the budget for it.
Right.
And there wasn't a fire store down the block where, oh, they're having Draeger helmets on sale. Let's go get some Draeger helmets.
yeah.
You know, you had to go to Europe to get the equipment.
That's so crazy.
And then World War I started, and they couldn't get parts for them anymore. So everybody, as part of their training, you had to be able to take the thing apart, put it back together, and fix it. Because nobody else, there was no mass service unit.
Nope.
Rescue One did their own stuff because they had no choice.
Right. And that,
And then a lot of those guys went to war too. Like, so you
Yeah.
lost a lot of guys. There was an old timer in my department, and he said, you know, all these guys went to war. They were looking for firefighters, and he said he like went into the city, and he shows up, and they're like, yeah, I want to sign up to help you guys out, be a fireman. They're like, okay, report to this firehouse, and like he just walked in the door. They're like, here's a helmet and a coat, and you go to work. He knew nothing.
Yeah.
well, the other interesting
just the way it was.
part with this too is during the war, because all the ports in Manhattan were busy with the submarines and the ships and everything like that, and then you had all the I guess enemies that were kind of undercover over here sabotaging some of these efforts. These guys, Rescue One, were going into ship fires and submarine fires,
Right.
which is just like they're kind of just, hey, this is what's going on. You guys got to go figure it out type deal. And they just did it. And it's just so funny when you think about, obviously, firefighting today compared to the shit that went on in this book. It's insane. And the other thing,
Men were men back then.
yeah,
right?
but
you just did
the
it.
other thing that I thought was important, which I don't think they do anymore, but the guys that would put on like a show for the people of the city. They would go to a theater, and the fire department would basically just reenact the shit that they do, and the people would be like, "Wow, this is what the fire department does." And you know, obviously, I don't think they're doing much of that anymore, where they're going to bring people down to a theater and show
Well,
them
they
what the
do.
fire department's
They
doing.
do fire prevention things. And
Yeah,
stuff, and
they do it differently
they go down
now.
to the
Right,
pier and
right.
They do
all,
it
right?
with, they do it with video and
Yes,
everything else.
yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That's one of the ways they did have outreaches. Also, Metal Day, they would have a big demonstration.
Yeah.
Where they would have the life-saving corps would come, the guys that were first trained on scaling ladders. All this stuff going back to 1883, 84, it all kind of started. They brought in Chris Hull from St. Louis. They had done scaling ladder work. He was a fireman in Europe, came to St. Louis. He watched a fire there, and he went to the fire chiefs after the fire was over, and he said, you need ladders like this. I can make them. I can teach you how to use them. They hired him. They started making grabs, and New York found out about it, and everybody else, well, we want you. So he came and taught us. They offered him a job, and he turned it down. He wanted to go back to St. Louis. And that started it, when scaling ladders and everything else. So from 1883 on, they already had roof ropes, amazingly. But from 83 on, that's when technical rescue really first started. They carried a little hatchet, but it wasn't for doing overhaul or anything, is so you could make an anchor if you had to. And they carried their own rope, and they would do single slides, but pick people up, which kind of is frowned on now, but we used to practice in Rescue One when I first got there. Jimmy Curran was a great boss. We practiced picking up another fireman on a single slide. And we found out that one of the best ways to do it was to have the guy get on your shoulders. Because this way I could still
You could
use my
still
hands.
go,
Now, the
right.
safety chief doesn't want to hear that.
Right,
And I
yeah.
could totally understand
Yep.
it. But when it's on, and this is your only chance,
Right.
I'm glad we practiced that one time before we had to do it.
Yeah.
But
The scary ladder, as they called it.
Oh yeah.
We
my
had
heart
them-
was broken when they took that away.
Yeah, that was. We had it on the rig when I started in the South Bronx. We still had it, but they got rid of them. What was that? Like '99, I guess.
It was a little earlier than that.
98?
But when
So somewhere
they,
in that range.
When they, yeah, in the mid-90s, when they all started, the CFRD got
Mm-hmm.
big, and then they also wanted peace officer training so you could write tickets better or whatever.
Right.
But Proby School, they had X amount of hours, and the scaling ladder and this new curriculum were bumping heads. And they looked at it, how often do you use the scaling ladder as opposed to CFRD, we're going to use all the time.
Right.
So that something had to go. I still don't know if it was the right decision. I understand it. I totally understand it, but it broke my heart. You took a tool away that no other tool could do. But the training that was involved to use it was cumbersome. I understood that, and a lot of guys wouldn't use it on a bet. You know, if it was up to them, I'm not getting on
That's why
that.
guys called it the scary
Right.
letter.
Well, I've been climbing telephone poles for 8 years. That was nothing. You know, that was, I thought it was
pretty
cool.
neat. I thought it was neat
Yeah.
when we did it in pro school and everything. We
But
had it on
then
the rig,
again,
we never took it off.
Then
but-
we're crazy, though.
Yeah.
A lot of people. Like right now, what I was climbing when I was a young guy, I would not climb there
wouldn't
now
do that
unless my grandchildren are hanging out the window. I'm
Right,
not going
yeah.
up there.
It's interesting too, like you mentioned, kind of the bigger cities throughout the early years, working with each other to understand these different. One of the things in this book was, I think it was a captain from Boston Fire Department that came down and rode with Rescue One for a full year, and then kind of went back to Boston and created the rescue squad up there. Was that just a Boston thing, or did a lot of these
Boston
develop
did
off
it.
of New
Matter
York?
of fact, there was one guy, Connecticut, New Haven, I'm thinking, because New Haven reached out to me. They had heard about this guy. There was one guy another lieutenant that had come, and I think he was going to the fire college. They had a fire college set up from, I guess, the 1880s on, and it just got bigger and bigger to teach in-house, to teach the chiefs, teach the officers. It all encompassed Proby School and everything, got bigger and bigger. They had a real nice setup. And it was open to departments on the outside. There was however many openings. And one of the things they would do, depending on what you were there for, they would try to give you the training and then put you into the area that you were going to be. You were a fireboat guy from where you were, you got on the fireboat. You're going to start the rescue company in Boston, you go here. And I think the Connecticut guy was going to go, they were going to start a rescue there or whatever. They put him with Rescue One. And they go out to a major fire where there's a bunch of people trapped, and Rescue One has to go and get them, and he's working with them. Cambridge, that's the fire department he's with. And in they go, and he's working with them, and they grab the guys out and take them out, and he ends up on the roll of merit. So in those days, instead of ribbons, they had little badges that went on your sleeve that the firemen called bugs. So it was gold, silver, and bronze was a class 1, 2, and 3. So you would see some of the guys in the old pictures, they used to say if you were heavily decorated in those days, you were crawling with bugs, that they went around your sleeve. So this guy didn't get a medal, but he got a bug, and he got a class 2. So except for Dr. Archer, who was a civilian that was an honorary fire officer and later became fire commissioner or first deputy or second deputy, I think. This is the only outside person from the FDNY that got official recognition for a rescue that I've ever seen. It might happen somewhere else.
This is the doctor that was like at all these just
Yeah,
somehow.
no, but I'm thinking of this other guy that was the from Cambridge,
Right.
right? So he left. They gave him a bug. They gave him a certificate, patted him on the head, say good luck in Connecticut or wherever the hell. And
That's wild.
you know, but yeah, it's pretty cool that all of a sudden you're there. And Doc Archer, amazingly, he might have stayed a little longer than he should have because he was like 80 years old, and I think he was getting he was losing it a tad maybe at the end. But there was a guy that, I don't know, 50 years, he was there all the time.
Wow.
All the time. Amazing. He kind of set up all the street medicine as we know it, where they would take over a storefront, and they would, so the guys didn't have to lay on the sidewalks. They'd go in and they'd move in and just take a building over, a lobby, anything they could do to get them out of the elements and set up a triage area.
Right.
So even then.
Really is so interesting. And, you know, aside from this book, you've written a ton of books, which I see you bought some with you. You want to go through some of those? Like, do you have, what's the most recent one that you've done?
Well, that's a standalone. This book was really the first book that I did, Distant Fire, and then I found out more information about a couple of the jobs that I wrote about in here. And then I was having problems getting it reprinted, so I wanted to completely redo it, make the changes, and I had better photographs. So I redid that. So this is the newest book, even though some people might have gotten it 20 years ago. But it's completely updated. As a matter of fact, the submarine fire is in there. Imagine going to a submarine fire on World War I,
Jesus.
Yeah.
where there's an O-class submarine, which was the biggest submarine then, and there's flames coming out the front hatch.
And you're going in
And
it.
the Navy's already tried to go in there. They had a
the
hydrogen
batteries?
explosion already. There's guys trapped, there's guys badly injured, and you can't use water because there's all batteries and there's all these gases. Every mixture of, methyl ethyl, bad stuff that you could have
It's all there.
is bubbling inside of this submarine.
Jesus.
And they just pull up, yeah, okay, let's go. And then
Yeah.
Wow.
they split into teams. They take a sailor with them, put a Draeger on him, let's go. And those little carbon tetrachloride brass hand extinguishers,
The little ones.
it took me about 20 years to find what they used. I figured they couldn't use the water right off because of the electric. There was a big electric panel that they were hooked up to with the batteries and generators and all this, dynamos. It was, complicated stuff.
Right.
But when I found a book about a naval guy's career, that's where I found it, because he was involved in this from the Navy side of it. And I suddenly found 4 pages in an obscure book that I'm jumping up and down. I've been looking for this
Wow.
for 20 years, and I found it. And now I put the whole thing together, and I know how they put it out now.
That's crazy.
And that was bothering me, and it didn't bother anybody else on the planet, but it was bothering me deeply. And now I know, and now I have a new one I was mentioning earlier about, I'm not going to give it away, but with the forcible entry tools, there's another thing that's been scratching the back of my head for a long time, and I think I cracked that nut too. So,
Wow.
That's insane.
And so how many books in total have you done now?
well, I've drawn a couple of children's books too. 2 children's books, a 2-part fire department cartoon book, and I guess maybe 10 other books, history books.
And where can people get these books?
Amazon books or myname.com, paulhashagen.com.
Okay.
My books are a little bit less than Amazon, and they come pre-signed. I sign my name rather than your name, but if you want me to sign your name, I'll sign.
Nice.
I'll sign John Hancock, Daffy Duck, whatever you want.
So
Yeah,
one,
we'll
of,
definitely
one of
put
the
that
things
in
you
the-
don't know is Paul's an artist.
No, I knew that.
And he designs, shirts and stuff. But the first time I ever worked in Rescue 1, in their downstairs room, they got all these cartoon characters on the wall. And I walked in, I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And start looking at it. They're like, there's every person that ever worked here
I was
in
just
a picture. And sure enough, Paul drew them all. But it's actually like cityscapes and streets, and there's like firemen hanging out windows and stuff. And I'm like, and I can go around and look at some of them, and I like, oh, I know that guy, I know that guy. But there's some history just in those walls.
Yeah,
It's insane.
that whole thing started just, I had done a poster size sketch. I had spent some time on it of virtually that scene, but they were all generic firemen. It always struck me, especially when I got to Rescue 1, that you could have for one person or one store or one building the end of the world happening, and then the rest of Manhattan might pause or just move around you. Excuse me,
Right.
we're trying to get through. Because people say that, oh, in New York City, the people aren't nice. They're nice. They're just busy.
Right.
Yeah.
If you stop to say hello to every person you see, like in Mayberry or something, you're never going to get where you're going. If you're doing it in Manhattan, there's a million people on the sidewalk. Hello. So you keep your head down and you go where you're going. But, they help lost tourists and they do the right thing. But the world keeps going on. So that's what that cartoon was about, that we're busy doing our thing, but the rest of the world keeps going
keep
on.
going.
And I put it up on the refrigerator and went off on a 72, and I come back and they're writing guys' names in there. And then it struck me that, well, one guy did suspiciously look like Joe Angelini because he was an old guy with a cigarette in his mouth. But everybody else was really generic. And then they kept saying, well, why don't you do that on the wall? And I'm going, what wall? What are you talking about? So I go on vacation and come back, and they had put up sheetrock, and we had some really talented guys, and it was smooth like Michelangelo ready, like, here you go. go do your fresco on the side of this thing. And I walked in and went, oh, son of a bitch. This is going to take a long time. So I made a deal with them. They didn't like my cooking to begin with. So I removed myself completely from the cooking detail. And I would do the late watches, and I would just stay up there. I kept a rough tab. The first wall took about 100 hours.
Wow.
While I was working.
And now, what kind of drawing is it? Is it more like cartoon or caricature or
Straight cartoons. Yeah, I would draw a rough, my version of it. And it's funny because people still reach out to me, oh, can you make us a patch? Can you make us something? So I can draw fairly well. And then there's this cartoon style that I developed for the firemen. So I remember this one guy sent me a thing, oh, yeah, do a picture of me and my father. So I did a good picture of him. And they sent it back, no, like you draw. Well, he just drew that. but I knew what he meant. He wanted how they look on the wall.
Right, cartoon.
So I had to Flintstone them up a little bit, you know. But that's what I drew when I was a little kid. I drew what I saw on television and the Flintstones and stuff. It's a style.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the rubber hose style. If you ever see any characters with the rubber hose like arms and legs, the old Mickey Mouses with the gloves
Yes,
on.
yeah.
And all the horses have rubber hose legs.
Yep.
There's a whole style to the kind of art you want to have.
right?
And I find out that the people like that, so I don't even bother trying to do the other ones anymore. I just do my style because I think that's what they want.
That's so cool.
It's wild. Like you could figure out who each firefighter is on the wall.
Right.
Just by the way it's drawn, the way it looks, or what's with them, you know.
I had done similar things in Freeport in truck company the whole time. I ran tournament for many years, old fashioned, and we held all sorts of state records. To come and go. Freeport had a whole bunch of good teams. The different companies had teams. Right. There was a whole bunch of other good teams from different departments. We had people that were our rivals, but they ended up being your good friends. And you know, you'd go to these tournaments, and they just started coming to me and handing me a poster board because we were fairly successful. Quite often, we'd get to win the tournament, so they'd want me to draw a cartoon, and they came up with this character, the Dead End Kid, because that was the nickname of the company, of the tournament team, and they loosely based it on one of the guys, Rick Holdner, who I won't go into details, but somehow got a tooth knocked out. And then that became part of his persona. He would take his little fake tooth out when he wanted to have fun, and he'd show everybody his missing tooth. And then I changed it up a little and just made it into this, like if you ever saw the Dead End Kids from the old movies in the 30s, there was one guy who had a pushed-up fedora hat.
Right.
So I put the pushed-up fedora hat on him, the missing tooth. And I've been drawing that character going back to, I guess, 1980 or so.
Wow.
And I did a whole long thing because I took one of the hook and ladders and just made it as long as I could. And I took every guy that was active in the Firehouse then. And if you go in truck company now, they have 2 tiller wheels from old trucks in the Firehouse on display. There's the one from the 1937 rig is up on one wall, and the one from the, what the hell was it, 62 or 64 rig was the first enclosed tiller rig in the world.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
And Freeport had that.
Seagrave, yeah.
Wow.
There was this guy, Bob Aarons, who was a member of the company, cool guy. I knew him. I didn't know him from the fire department. I knew him. I was friends with his son. His son ended up, Chris Aarons, ended up playing for the Minnesota North Stars for a while in the National Hockey League. Bob also worked as an off-ice official for the National Hockey League, but he was like a motorhead guy. He had a dune buggy, all these things when I was a kid. I remember looking at the house like a dune buggy you saw on television in a commercial about California. This guy had one. Like, holy mackerel. But he was in the fire department. He's sitting down with Seagrave, and he's saying, well, why can't you enclose the tiller rig? I said, well, nobody's ever done it before. No. All you got to do is this. Bop, 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 bop. And they did it.
Wow.
And now
Interesting.
tiller rigs are all enclosed. And it all goes back to him.
That's insane. Now, do you have, obviously you have extensive knowledge on the history of FDNY and all that stuff. How far back does your history go with, say, Freeport or just the fire departments on Long Island in general? Have you looked much into that, or?
Not really, because they're so like even in Freeport, because the different companies, it's different. There's no treasure trove to go look in one place. Like I can sit at home and find all sorts of stuff. Although there are things you can find for those looking for yourselves. The Brooklyn Eagle,
Yes, I've heard of
the
that
Brooklyn
before.
Eagle, and the Brooklyn Daily something or other. They were Long Island papers. It was primarily Brooklyn, but there were stories about Freeport, Sayville, like big parades, the state parades coming, whatever. It'd be covered in there. So you can find stuff about tournaments, fire chiefs, companies, all that kind of stuff. I just got so consumed with New York City that by the time things were happening, it was like they wrote a real nice book about the Freeport history, and two other guys were doing it. So I didn't have the depth of information or the wherewithal. I would help them if they needed it, but I've done a little bit in house at truck company. But my friend Joey Giordano did a history thing, and he found a whole bunch of good stuff. So I help people with it, but there's too many stories.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's 70 just in Nassau County, right? So
Yeah.
New York City's relatively easy. You can go to the museum. There's a lot of information there. You can go to the department library. There's tons of information there. But there's no one centralized thing for Nassau County or Suffolk County to go do your research.
Yeah. And, we've said it on the show before, Kevin mentions it all the time about why it's important to understand the history of your departments. And obviously you have a knack for it, especially in the city. What does it mean to you? Why is this history so important? Why should people know this type of stuff?
Well, just because even though it's an old thing, it doesn't mean that it can't ring true today. One of the podcasts I did with my daughter, I think I just touched on it, but there was a situation where there was a picture. Harvey Eisner took a picture of me when I first got in Rescue 1 holding a wooden door up on a fire escape over a window. New guy in Rescue 1. We get to the Upper West Side. There's people on the fire escape. O'Flaherty, my captain, looks at me and goes, "Go in that apartment and get a door right away." I don't ask. Stealing somebody's closet door. But thank God it was a good heavy wooden door. And come out, he could see the fire was coming down in this room and was going to expose the fire escape. And there's got to be 10, 15 people above of firefighters and civilians that they're trying to get clear. And we just take the door and hold it up over the window, and I'm holding it with a hook. And it bought them 30 seconds, a minute. But it was enough that nobody got burned. And eventually the door burns through and falls down. It was real dramatic. And it was like, wow, that was pretty cool. So we get a fire in Freeport one night, and I think I'm captain of the hook and ladder the first time around, so it's 82. We get there, and the first house, they must have put 5 gallons of gasoline in this house because it was a Queen Anne. It lifted the house up, turned it slightly, and put it right back down. Wow. And that is fire out every window on arrival. It was right under one of the water tanks. We had 2 water tanks at Freeport, a 500,000 gallon tank and a 1 million gallon tank on the highway. But this 500,000 gallon water tank, they're painting it, so there's no water in it. So this is the other ass end of the village, so there's water problems. Major house fire. It's in both houses on either side.
Jeez.
As we pull up. So it's like, holy mackerel. So they transmit a second alarm. I split my guys. Some go in one exposure. I take guys go in the other exposure, and I turn to one of the young guys, go downstairs and get me a door from a closet. And I'm getting the same look that I probably gave the captain. Just go get it, because the fire's coming in the attic windows. So we hold it up until they're able to get lines and everything else. And the guys are looking at me like I'm a genius, but I didn't think of it.
Right, somebody else did. Yeah.
Right? And then to come to find out that Smokey Joe Martin did it in the 20s in a fire in the Rockaways just to get down the block. All these cottages are on fire. He goes down the block under cover of a hose stream. They're trying to get to a pumper that's on fire.
Jeez.
And they leapfrog in behind the door. Neary uses a door in one of his 2 Bennett metal rescues to get down a hallway in a project building. I'm at another fire with Rescue 1, and it was a wind-driven fire. The guys got driven away from the line. They got burned. We come in, we take over. And as it turns out, it was a tough stretch, and there wasn't enough hose. And I couldn't make the turn. And one of the guys comes up, Jimmy, and he's got a door, and he's laying in front of me holding the door, and I'm using the line and bouncing it off the door around the corner to control the fire in that room. So it's just
It works.
how smart you can, how smart you are if you can think of something from the past and utilize it right now.
Right. Yeah.
True.
No, it's definitely interesting. And you mentioned this was one of the stories you were just talking about. You did in one of those episodes with your daughter, which such an awesome series that you've been doing. It's you guys go live on Instagram every Wednesday, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Once a week.
Yeah.
How did that come about? When did you start doing that? Obviously, just for the people listening, your daughter Elizabeth has been on News 12 as an anchor for a pretty decent amount of time. I think
She worked for News 12 for a very long time. She recently retired from there and is doing all sorts of cool stuff on her own. But she was doing these kind of things, and she said to me, "Oh, let's you and me do one." I said, "Okay, cool." She said, "Oh, I got a good idea." And by next thing I know, I'm sitting there, and she's got everything set up, and it's easy for me. It's
Right.
I'm just telling fire stories, so it's
yeah.
it's easy. It's just coming up with something that you think people are going to relate to or understand or get it. So you don't want to just tell
love
every
it.
Yeah, I
single.
mean, you could.
I think it's great.
You could tell already. I mean, just the views, the amount of people that are commenting on it and stuff like that. It's great to hear that, and especially somebody that's got a background like your daughter that knows how to ask the right questions, and obviously you're a great storyteller, so it's compelling to watch those. So I thought it was interesting, and that was, I guess, fairly recent. You started doing that.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, I think we started. Yeah, it's easy for me because I sit there and tell a story. She's got the knack for all these things. 13 Emmys later, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, for sure.
I would think so.
Yeah. Now that being said, you with this history that you have in FDNY and also being a member in Freeport, and we've talked about this with some of the past guests that we've had about humility and staying humble, because when you really look at it, every firefighter wants to be known as being a great firefighter and having this great career and being legendary. When you do have a career like that, like a career that you've had, and you've had these pictures taken of you and whatnot, what is the key there to staying humble? And I'm sure you've maybe ran into some people that are like, oh, that's, Paul and blah, 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 that give you some sort of shit. Maybe not. But I think generally speaking, you're very well known in the fire service. People have a lot of respect for you. So how do you kind of keep that down and not get to your head, which unfortunately happens to some people?
Well, I would imagine that depending on who you talk to, there was probably a point where it had gone to my head. But the reality of it is it isn't about you. I just consider myself lucky that I found something that I liked doing and that I was good at. And then the fact that particular calling could make a difference in somebody's life. And every time you went out the door, I always consider myself just so fortunate to be in the position, all of us. And the thing that gets me is all of us have the same opportunity. And it's really about, of course, you have to be in the right place at the right time, but you have to be serious about it. I mean, you can have fun. I worked with some guys that didn't like my act or whatever. You got to loosen up, man. I loosen up, but just not for these 15 hours or these 9 hours. I like having fun in the firehouse, but, there was just something about when I got to Rescue 1 as a young guy, there were older guys, they weren't pouring buckets of water on you and stuff like that. They didn't have to. That all happened before you got there.
Right.
Like the 5 years prior to somebody getting there. And that's good. All those rites of passage are wonderful. But, you you can carry things too far, and it just amazes me. You can go to the top colleges throughout the country, and it just happened again recently. Some fraternity somewhere, they're all getting arrested, and some kids banged up. And don't you guys watch the news?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
don't you understand that people got in trouble last year for doing the same thing, and the year before, and the year before, and some families are burying their kids because you want to prank this guy to get him in your fraternity? It doesn't make sense. And these are the smartest people in the country.
Yeah.
So God forbid, some knucklehead fireman, what the hell is going to happen? We got to control ourselves, man,
Yeah, we go through it sometimes on the show, but there's all sorts of articles that come out from fire department hazing incidents, whether it's a volunteer department or a paid department. And we just say to ourselves, like, especially the paid departments, like, this is your career.
Yeah.
And you guys this is a completely different world. I mean, you mentioned earlier, we got cameras everywhere and cameras on the phone, so all this crazy shit that you're doing is being recorded or it's being reported to somebody, and these people are ruining their careers, and not just the career, but their department is now.
Your department's in trouble, and if it's your career, it's not just you. What are you going to
your
tell your
family.
wife and kids when you get home?
It's your family.
Oh, I just lost my job, or I just got a rip for however many days, which cost you money or whatever. Like, going home from the volleys for a month isn't going to hurt your bank account. But if you get a rip at work and they're taking money out of your pocket, or you get fired for doing something stupid, well, what are the wife and kids going to do when you come back and try to explain to them, well, but they don't understand, it's funny. But no, it's not.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
I do think it's important, though, we were talking before we started about giving back and sharing information, right? I mean, we learned a lot of stuff over the years, and it's very important for firefighters to pass that on to the younger generations.
Right.
I mean, you're retired, I'm retired, but we're still involved. Like, we're still giving back wherever we can. And I think that's very important that all firefighters think about that we learned something and we should share that with somebody else.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the terms that always made me scratch my head is that when people say they give 110%, and you think, well, you really can't.
Right.
But then I remember the fires where I did give more than 100%. And usually the guys that are doing all that crazy shit have never been in that situation where they really give more, where they push themselves right to the edge. And it's any department.
Sure.
There's just that handful of guys that are just a little bit better, a little bit whatever it is, and that's in any profession anywhere. There's people that are a little bit better than everybody else. How do they get there, and how do you become that? I'm not exactly sure, because it's different for each person. But I think the most important thing is that you have to realize the responsibility that you have, that this is a real thing. One of the first fires I went to in Freeport, it was a civilian got killed. In my first year, one of the two people that I was in the car with to take the New York City fire test gets killed in the line of duty. So I've been to civilian fatalities. I've been to firefighter fatalities. This is real. Yeah, you can have a lot of fun doing this, and we do have a lot of fun doing it, but this is dead serious at the same time. So you have to be able to tightrope on that. And I would rather err on the side of being bland and stuffy rather than being hats and horns all the time. There's a time to have a party, but when it's somebody else's house, like I've seen people do things to make other companies look bad. But that's just stupid. That's the guy you just made look bad. That's not his house that's burning. That's this other poor guy that's wondering, what are these guys doing?
Right, yeah.
Is there a better number to call? Like 912? Will better people come?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
It's interesting because we get a lot of requests to talk about. Everyone seems to talk about the issues that are going on in the fire service in general, and it comes down to leadership or culture. And you have these new or younger officers that are coming into these ranks that are dealing with a bad culture in their department, or some people step in and actually ruin a culture in a department. Given your experience going through the ranks in Freeport and understanding the traditions and styles of how things were done in the city and how things were done in Freeport. What advice would you give to new or current leaders that are dealing with a bad culture in their department? How to turn that around?
Well, one of the things that kind of happened to us is we had one little period when it felt like the young guys were running haywire. And we sat down with some of them like, what the hell's going on? Like, what are you guys thinking about? And they turned around and says, well, we're just doing what you guys said that you did. All the crazy stories that we had. And then it struck me, yeah, but that's 25 years of stories. You're trying to do it in one night.
Yeah.
You got to pace yourself.
Yeah.
You got to pick and choose when it's the right time to let your hair down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different than even 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
It's all these cameras and everything.
Yep.
And you just have to, is it fair? Is it good? No, you can cry all you want. You can complain all you want. But it's your butt that's going to be in the sling. And I just wouldn't want to be embarrassed. And talk about the notoriety. I go to the 2002 U.S. Open Golf Championship with my wife. We were big golf nuts at the time. And we get in, and it was at Bethpage. We go to the 18th hole. We had gone to another one earlier in the week. And we walked around and followed them. Tough course.
Oh, yeah.
Long walk. We decided we're going to sit at 18, and we're going to wait for them to come to us. And that's where the whole championship's going to be right in front of us. It's going to take a while to get here, but that's what we're doing. And we hung in there. At some point, a guy makes a putt and turns around and throws the golf ball into the crowd right where I'm sitting. So it lands behind me. I hear it clunk, and then I hear it rolling down the wooden floor. And it comes right between my feet. So I lean down, and I get the ball in my hands, and then all of a sudden, these little fingers come in, and they got the ball too. And right away, I could tell it's a kid. So I just let it go. I didn't say anything. Hey, go ahead, kid. So he leaves. Whatever. The thing's over. We're leaving. We're walking out. A guy, I have no idea who he was. But he goes, Paul, that was really nice. You let that kid have that ball. Holy shit, he knows who I am. But that's the bad part about notoriety. I didn't give that kid the ball so the crowd would think I was nice. I gave the kid the ball because it probably is an important thing for a little kid. Like getting a baseball at a baseball game. Like that kid might become a golfer because of that. I'm already a golfer. I don't know what to do with golf balls. But, it was just something that was the right thing to do. But people are watching you. And then what guys forget is when people watch you and you're wearing a shirt with a Maltese cross on it, you're representing everybody, not just your company, not just your department. You're representing all of us. And the worst thing in the world is to go out there and get your ass jammed up and be taken out in handcuffs somewhere wearing a fire department shirt.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like some knuckleheads that go set a fire somewhere to have something to do. I'm sorry. That's arson.
Yeah.
I don't care whose son you are or whatever. No, you should go to jail. That's just crazy shit. But these things happen. And what people work so hard, like Bob Morris and I were talking, Captain Morris, and he was just saying that you work your whole career to build your reputation, but you can lose it in 5 minutes.
Yep.
And guys don't realize that you could not only destroy your own reputation, you hurt everybody. And that's the bigger picture, I think. So that, to me, it's easy to be humble because, yeah, I had a couple of good days. I was in the right spot at the right time, and I had the good training. But all those fires went out before I got there, and I'm pretty sure they're still putting fires out without me. So I'm not that important. I was a key cog in the wheel at the time. But, it's not you. It's the people that you're helping.
Bigger
When we had guys in the volleys that were getting all revved up and they wanted to change everything, and I just told them, see how big that door is? We can get that big-ass fire truck right out that door. Why don't you go if you don't like it? You're going to come here and change us? No. If you want to talk about it, go up on the meeting room floor, let them know what you think. But sitting in the kitchen grumbling all the time, that's nonsense.
Right.
And then they stop talking when the one guy comes in that they're afraid of or whatever.
Yeah, it's usually how it works, right?
Will you?
The wheels will keep turning.
Yeah. And now, what is one thing that you think we could do better, whether it's in the fire service as a whole or in the volunteer service with all the stuff going on with, declining membership and, those type of
God, I
struggles?
wish I had an answer for that. No, really, that's something that we've talked about my whole time since I came into the fire department. They went with low SAP and things like that. You just need to attract the right kind of people. You could fill a firehouse up with bodies, but if you can't get that person that's going to make a difference, then you just have another person to direct traffic for you. You really need, you need good people, and how to find them and nurture them and train them. I don't know. I don't think there's a silver bullet.
Nope.
I think it's probably a complex thing, and I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there is an answer, because it's way different than when I broke in. Most everybody had one job, and a lot of times it was just the guys that were working and the wives were staying home with the kids. You can't do that anymore.
Nope.
Nobody can afford to live around here. Everything's so expensive. For guys to give up a second job or whatever. I was turning down overtime when I was a new guy in New York City to go to tournament practice. Another thing the wife was really happy about. But it's the dedication that you have to it. And some people won't go to that lengths. I mean, that's a little ridiculous in retrospect, but
Yep.
at the time it seemed very important. But you have to find the people that are willing to make that kind of commitment, that it's more than just money, because it is more than just money. It's the coolest job in the world, without a doubt. You get to make a difference every single day, potentially. Nobody else can do that. The poor cops, they go arrest somebody, and then all the court stuff happens, and sometimes they get out too soon, you got to go to trial. It's never over. We get to go, the fire's out, let's go home. Instant gratification. Who gets that? The lifeguard can swim out there and save the baby. He can't stop the waves. We had the balls to actually go to a fire and put the fire out. Elemental nature. Nobody's doing anything like that. Nobody can do anything like that except us.
It's
And
interesting.
we need quality over quantity.
Yeah, and that's
really
the thing
what it
that you
comes
have.
down
If
to.
you take in that
The right
whole
people in
thing,
the right seats.
it's almost like a religious thing to me. In retrospect, give me a couple beers, we can get deep into it. But but that's the idea. It's you can get as deep into that as you want philosophically. But I don't think there's a silver bullet for that answer, because it's such a big nut to get somebody to commit to.
Right. Now, I guess overall, just to kind of wrap this up, what overall advice do you have to anybody in the fire service, joining the fire service, or any other tidbits you want to leave out there for our listeners to hear?
Well, I just think what I said in the beginning about keep your mouth shut. You go a long way. Everybody thinks they know everything. I've worked with all sorts of knuckleheads over the years, and I always found it's just what I was saying before. Let everybody tell you the same thing, because that one guy's going to have the nugget. I want the nugget, so that I'm going to think of taking the door off. So I'm going to think of doing this because they did that, or whatever that little trick was, or thing they came up with. And that's really just by listening. And then you have to take it seriously. Like anybody else, I hated it when you got into work and they said, oh, we're going to the Rock. I want to go to fires. But to be able to perform at fires, you have to train.
You have to train.
And especially if you're going to get into the more technical things. I know there were guys that were not happy when the New York City rescue companies got into more technical rescue, because there was a lot more to learn. All these crazy meters, 1,500 different knots, all these different, like you name it. But it says on the side of the truck, rescue. And you can't just pull up and say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't do that kind of rescue. You have to be able to do every kind of rescue.
Right, yeah.
And that means you have to tie every knot. You have to be able to jump in the water, or support the guy that's jumping in the water, or whatever it is. So, again, you have to find the people with the commitment level. And if you're that young guy, it's there for the taking. There's so much to it and you can keep going. Like the world is open up now. Like hazmat and things, like I'm not interested in hazmat, but if you are chemically oriented, like somebody that enjoys the science of that, there's that whole big giant thing that you can get involved in.
Yeah.
Like the technical rescue, like all those cool things and just doing things differently than it's been done before. I've been around from Scott 2s to thermal cameras and beyond, and, pull up rubber boots and riding on the back step. Well, it seemed like a lot of fun until it's your fifth run in the night and it's snowing out, and then standing on the back step is not fun for 1 minute,
Yep.
So it's just be happy that if you can find a thing that you like to do, like we did, just do the best you can. It's not that hard. I'm not the brightest guy around. I figured out how to do it. There were a couple of nuns who were beating the hell out of me because I was underperforming, shall we say. And I think they would have been happy in the long run.
Yeah.
He finally learned something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a great opportunity, and you learn so much, and you meet such great people.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the fire service is I've met some amazing people that have taught me so much.
And the same thing with all this writing is because I have an interest in finding it out. But what I really like is telling somebody else. I get all these people when I post these things. Oh, that's my grandfather. Mm-hmm. How cool is that?
That's
Do you
awesome.
have these pictures? And I send them pictures that they have.
Oh, that's
they send me
nice.
pictures. That's how I'm getting all this stuff. And it's just remarkable. Years ago, when one of the first articles I wrote was about the Equitable fire, and I became pen pals with Seneca Lark's daughter. Now, at the time, I was probably 30, and she was 70. And my wife used to kid me, there's more mail from your girlfriend. Now that I'm 70, slightly different feeling about things. But she was so happy that somebody was taking the time to research her father. So all those families, but then everybody else, like those stories, like I'm very happy that you would that into that book, because that's why I wrote it, because people have no idea the depths. They were writing the book as they did it.
Right.
There's nobody said, go look up what we do, because nobody ever did this before. So they had, let's write down what we did, so we can figure out what to do next time, or somebody else can do it. And that's now, because it's changing today. Like there'll be new stuff on the rig tomorrow,
Yep.
and there'll be new ways of doing things, or new hazards that you're going to run into. This thing isn't done. This is still developing.
Yeah.
So even if you're the new guy, yeah, you missed the horses. And by the way, you had to clean up the poop after them. So, that wasn't all glamorous. And riding the back step wasn't all that much fun when it was snowing or raining. Yeah, it had its moments. But same thing with today. Today is just as relevant as any other past day in history, and probably more relevant because you're doing it for the new person. Here's your chance to shine.
It is such an interesting way to look at it, because our big thing now we talk about all the time is like the lithium-ion battery fires, like these new things coming to the fire service that it's just rapidly changing. And when you think about it, maybe there will be somebody that writes a book on this 30, 40 years down the line and talks about the stuff that we did, or even when it comes to solar panels on a house or electric
Can
vehicles.
you believe that this is what they used to do?
Right.
When the lithium batteries went on fire. Thank God we figured it out.
Yeah.
And that new person is just right there. He's getting off probation tonight.
Yeah, shout out Ryan Mack.
Ryan.
He's getting rid of
There you
his
go.
red shield
so
tonight.
it's going to be up to you, man.
Yep. You're the
No
next guy.
pressure.
He's learning a lot from just being around us, just listening. But
Yeah.
it is amazing. Like you said, you listen and you hear, but everybody's course of time does some amazing stuff, no matter how you look at it. And, Tony Tedeschi and I used to talk about this, and we said, think about the things that we went through in our career. We always, look back at the 70s and 60s, but you say, wow, look at all the crap that happened during our spell,
Without a
right? Plane
doubt.
crashes, 9/11, and everything else that happened. And you're like, wow. And everybody has that little mold down the line. So we all learn from the past and present as we go, and that's what happens.
I was just talking to our present chief of department, who I hadn't seen in a while, and I remember when he came through rescue school as a bright and shiny officer and everything, and I think even just going into the regular squad,
Yep.
and then to see a guy end up being chief of department, like that's wonderful. Like imagine being in that kind of spot.
It is amazing.
But everybody is in that same position that I didn't get to be chief of department but I made a difference doing this. And you can make it, there's all these different spots that you can go and things that you can do. And it's just amazing. I remember saying to him that when I did this first Rescue 1 book, or the second one actually, and I started looking, I felt that, I missed it all. I missed the war years. I got the tail end of it. And when I started looking at the amount of fires that we went to and the things that we got to do, I didn't miss anything.
Right.
It was just a little bit later, but the work was still there.
Right.
And you can't tell me that they're not doing work now, because they're working their ass off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like everybody says, oh, no, there's no fires anymore. Sure there are. If there were no fires, it'd take them 2 days to get rid of the fire department. Without a doubt. If there were no more fires, you cost a lot of money to people.
yeah.
Get them out of here.
Yep.
They need you.
Yep.
And the
Yeah.
work's always going to be there. It just changes.
Yeah, 100%. Kev, do you have anything? Because I know you've been very quiet this
I'm
episode.
staying very quiet. I'm just listening to Paul and taking it
Yeah.
all in. But the one thing I will say, and I just hit on this a little bit, but Danny Murphy had said, and he said he had heard from somebody else, but one of the things he said in the fire service, he goes, we're all just spokes in a wheel. The wheel keeps turning.
Yep.
And a spoke breaks and we put a new one in. And that's the fire service. We grow off of each other. We make the wheel turn and we keep saving people's lives and property. And that's really what it comes down to. And when I heard that analogy, I was like, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We all do a little piece. We're not always the best. There's always somebody that's going to be better than us, we're just trying to be the best of us.
Right.
And making that wheel turn and making the fire truck.
Right. And I think on the next step above that is our era. I like to look at this era as a link in a chain going all the way back to the Draeger helmets and all the rest of it. And that's why we have to be good in our era, because they were good in their, like, you can't give up. Oh, this is getting too difficult, or this is getting too hard, or it costs too much money. There's a tremendous amount of training and everything else that they heap on you. But the dangers are so much more than they were.
Oh, absolutely.
Like just the smoke itself and the things that are burning and the construction of the buildings.
Yep.
Steve McQueen says, why don't they consult with us before they build these buildings in the towering inferno?
Yep.
It comes right to today when they're building a new strip mall down the block from the Firehouse. They don't stop in and ask you guys, what's your opinion about how I should build a building and make it fire safe? They're throwing it up as fast as they can.
Yeah.
Right? What's the most dangerous building in your town? I always used to tell them it's a freestanding garage, because what's in a garage? Everything
knows
that's
what's
too
in it.
dangerous to keep in your house. So you have to attack a garage completely differently. And then probably even more dangerous than that is McDonald's. Because you're going to go in there, it's all lightweight truss. There's no life hazard in there. McDonald's burning in the middle of the night. We're going to break the windows and push a line in there and have a flaming building fall on our head. And soon as they got the alarm, McDonald's just put another whole prefabricated McDonald's thing on a truck and started driving it there.
Right, yeah.
Because they're going to throw that one away, but we're going to kill ourselves trying to save it. So you have to pick and choose when do you risk your life and how do you attack these fires.
And that happened in Houston. They lost firefighters in
Exactly,
McDonald's, just like that,
Yep.
And so you're right. You're absolutely right.
What do you do with the lightweight truss? There used to be that 20-minute rule in a building fire. You got 10 minutes in now, chief. You got to start worrying about the building falling down in 20 minutes,
Yep.
like a tenement or something. What about a lightweight house?
Yeah, 5
There
minutes.
is no time.
5 minutes.
It
Yeah.
was 5 minutes ago is probably when you should not have gone into the
Yep,
building anymore.
Right. Yeah. No, we definitely talk about that a lot.
Plenty of that. So be
Absolutely.
careful, kids.
I agree.
Stay low.
Well, Paul, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on, and we say it all the time. But we would love to have you on again at some point. Just because there's just so much to talk about. But for you to come out to the studio today and give us your time, and obviously you're doing a lot. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure our listeners appreciate it as well. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
And
That's a wrap.
that's a wrap on 63.
Episode 63 out.
63.